Hello, everyone. We're here for the next series in the podcast on speaking for success. I have as my guest today, Ramona Smith. Ramona is the world champion of public speaking from 2018. She's from Texas, and we spoke at an event back in 2018 when I was region advisor, and I had to follow the world champion. This was not the situation I really wanted to be in. However, I enjoyed meeting Ramona and her son, who was there and knew a fair bit of her speech. And I asked Ramona to join us and talk about competition speaking. And when Ramona won the world championship in 2018, they had announced the third place winner, a woman. They announced the second place, a woman. And Lark Doley said, "We're about to make history here." And those of us who had been around for a while said, "Yes, it's Ramona. It's going to be 3 women as the top 3 in the world championship." That had never happened before. So Ramona, how did it feel to be part of a history-making contest where the top 3 were all women?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for blazing this new trail of podcasts and this amazing series. I hope that most of our fellow Toastmasters follow your lead, because it's necessary and it's needed, and it's something different and it's something fun. So thank you for doing this, and thank you for having me. While you were describing that, I was back in Chicago in the audience, filled with excitement, and just it was a dream come true to just be there. First of all, there were times when I was sitting in the audience and I forgot that I was competing. I was just a fan. I've always been a fan of the World Championship of Public Speaking, and to be there in the presence of these amazing speakers, it was mind-blowing. But when I heard Lark Doley say exactly what you just said, I still didn't really know it was me because there was another woman. Her name was Week Week, and she was in it as well. So it could have been her. I didn't know. But then when she said Ramona J. Smith, I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. I immediately ran to my cousin who was there supporting me. He was the only family member I had who was there, and he came, and I ran and I hugged him, and then I ran to the stage, and it's so hard to put it into words, because it was such a life-changing moment, and it was such a moment of just gratitude and disbelief. But to be a part of that, I feel like a legend. I feel like it's something that I can leave to my son, a legacy that I can leave to my son. It's something that will never, ever, ever go away. It's something that nobody can ever take away. And it's something that really changed my life.
And I'd like to get back to that later about how it's changed your life. But was this your first time competing, or had you competed in the past?
I competed twice before. I competed in 2015, and that year I was convinced that I was going to be the world champion of public speaking. I was going around telling people, I'm the 2015 world champion of public speaking, speaking it into existence, whatever the case may be, whatever people, usually in churches and the Baptist Christians, not to try to put religion in here, but we always say, speak it into existence, speak it into existence. And I was really pushing it that year, and I was really forcing it that year, but I didn't really have a lot of experience with the entire competition, and I didn't have a lot of experience with competitive speaking. And then I competed again in 2016, and it was just bad. I didn't even make it out of the club contest in 2016. 2015, I made it to the district level and placed 3rd.
Great. And a lot of the winners often say that they've lost more than that they've ever won. And so one shouldn't be discouraged because you've lost. So it sounds like you did have your eye on the prize from the start. I know when Mark Brown first competed back in 1994, he didn't know what came next at each level. And he kept saying, oh, no, I can't do that. I'm busy there. And this district was saying, yes, you're doing it. By the time he got to the region, which was still in existence at that point, the region contest, he knew that the next step was the international competition in Louisville. And he was looking for that. But so were you aware, like that first time that you competed, were you aware of what came next each time? Or
I was aware of the semifinals because they were going to be in the whole contest was going to be in the convention in Vegas. I was aware, but I still didn't know the magnitude of it. People would say, after you win this, you're going to go into the semifinals, but that was it. Nobody explained to me what it was going to look like, what it was going to feel like, what it was going to be like. But luckily for me, one of my good friends actually got me a ticket to the World Championship of Public Speaking in 2015. So I was able to go and see Muhammad Katani win that year. And I got a little bit more of an idea of what the contest is like. And it was crazy. It was bananas. When they opened those doors, people were rushing in, trying to get their seats and blocking up whole sections. It was crazy, but I loved it so much. So I had an idea of what was going to come next, but I had no idea of how huge it really was until I was able to go and see it for myself.
yeah, it certainly is on a whole different level than anything you experience up to that point. Once you started getting a better understanding of what was involved and everything, and you wanted to go for the World Championship, what did you do differently to prepare for a competition?
In 2015, the only preparation I did was pacing around in my living room by myself. And I had not my still current mentor, who's not even in Toastmasters. I gave the speech to her, and of course she loved it, but she wasn't in Toastmasters. So it's different because she doesn't have that perspective. And then jumping to 2018, I prepped a lot with our district leaders at the time. They helped me so much. Rose Bradford and Rose and Cheryl Warren, and of course, Kathy Kess, they all helped me out so much. And they spent so much time with me, helping me to develop the speech and helping me to eliminate certain things and add certain things. And then I have an amazing writer and editor, Heidi Caperton, who is in my current Toastmasters club. And she was able to give me that the juicy, spicy words and able to help me with grammatical errors and things like that. And also from my previous district, I'm actually from Ohio, but I've been in Texas for 4 years. From my previous district, a guy named Larry Sapansky, who actually sponsored my trip in 2015 to the World Championship, he gave me so much great insight. He is the one who told me about the holograms. So when I was on the stage in 2018, he told me here, here, and here, and how the audience is going to follow your story and place one point here and one point here and one point there. And he told me about the phrase that pays, and mine was still standing. So he gave me so many great pointers as far as the culture of Toastmasters and things that I could implement in my speech to make it a World Championship Toastmasters speech. Because we all know that Toastmasters, it's its own world, it's its own entity, and it's much different than a TED Talk. You don't want to give a TED Talk on a Toastmaster stage and vice versa. So there are little tips and tricks and strategies that you have to have in your speech in order to make it at that World Championship level speech.
Okay, and that kind of leads into my next question, which is, do you see a difference between a speech for a regular club meeting versus a speech for a competition? And if so, what?
I think that's a great question. At the club level, it's very relaxed. Sometimes people don't even prepare. They kind of just get up there and give a 5 to 7 minute table topic speech. It's not as animated, I would say. It's not as energetic. And some people are. Some of our club members do have that passion and that and bring all that energy. But I feel like at the club level, it's not a whole lot of pressure. It's not a lot of thought that goes into it. We're usually just trying to get some credit to move on to the next level. So we don't really put a lot of weight on it. Whereas a competitive speech, you have to make sure you're on time, and you have to put the extra preparation in it, and you have to make sure it's organized so that the audience can follow you, and you have to make sure that you have a solid intro and your main points flow together. And it's just more, I feel like it's more preparation, and we take it more seriously when we're competing, just because it's competition involved. And most of us who compete are very competitive and we want to have the best speech and we want to win. So just putting that whole competitive aspect into creating the speech, I feel like people try to take it to another level by adding that extra layer of preparation.
And you're not doing the things like you talked about, people giving you the right words and taking things out that weren't necessary, which is probably one of the hardest things to do, because you've written this and you think, oh, this is wonderful. And somebody says, no, that doesn't contribute. Did you find that was difficult to do?
Absolutely. And now that I'm a coach, I coach people with their speaking and their speeches. That is one of the hardest things to do as a speaker, is to change your speech, or someone to tell you like, no, take that away. That's not going to work. Or because we want to share our whole stories. Every single word, every single story is important. And I'm like, yes, we want to hear about your whole life. Yes, your whole life is important, but we can't get all of that in 7 minutes. You can't go from 0 to age 52 in 5 to 7 minutes. And even if you do, it's not going to be a great speech, because you're not going to be giving us those solid examples. So now that I'm on the other end and I'm seeing people who really don't know, I want to keep that, and I'm going to stand firm on that. Okay, well, why did you hire me to be a coach if you're not going to listen to what I say? But we're very sensitive about our speeches, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's funny when you say about not being able to put your whole life from 0 to 52 or possibly even older in one speech, when people say, well, I don't think I should have to do another icebreaker every time I start a path. And I say, well, if you can get your whole life in 4 to 6 minutes, you've led an even much more boring life than mine has been.
I agree. I definitely agree. And I think that just comes with that Toastmasters arrogance. And sometimes we all get it, especially if we've been around for a while. Some of us, we get that Toastmasters arrogance where it's like, I know what I'm doing. I'm a great speaker. I'm a DTM. Why should I? Or I'm on my way to DTM, or I have my CC or ALC, or, all those other ABCs of Toastmasters. And we forget about what it really means to be a part of this organization. So even if you do have to give your 17th icebreaker this year, what about the new members who are coming in who need to see your expertise? And they need to see how an icebreaker is done. Someone who's shuddering in their seat and their hands are getting clammed up just thinking about giving an icebreaker. You getting on that stage is going to help inspire them and encourage them to one day get on that stage to where you are. So I hope that we can continue to realize that it's not just for our benefit, it's for the benefit of the current members and the new members and the guests who are going to be watching us as we give these same speeches over and over.
And that's a very good point. It is our responsibility as experienced members to be role models for those new members. And that's what could be a completely different podcast, but really annoys me about people who don't continue to do speeches and work the program and everything, because, oh, well, I've done that. Yeah, but think about the people that haven't, and think of how you could potentially inspire them. You talked about the difference between TED a TED Talk and the contest, for example. And we often hear criticism that contest speeches focus too much on the dramatic presentation rather than on the structure and content. What's your feeling on that?
I love that question because people often do, they do talk about that a lot, especially when you watch my speech. I'm all over the place, but that's who I am. I feel like it really depends on the person's personality. It depends on who they are, because if you go back to actually my favorite speech by Dhananjaya Hederachi in 2014, I See Something, all he had was a simple rose and that amazing voice of his and that Sri Lankan swagger of his. He wasn't all over the place. He wasn't all around. Even if you look at who else was kind of low key.
Jock Elliott would be a good example.
Absolutely, Jock Elliott. So it really depends on the person and what they want to give. When you look at Darren LaCroix, for example, he's a comedian. Of course, he's going to be on the ground talking about ouch, you know. And you in most of the people in Toastmasters do have that energy. We do have that passion. We do have that spark and that je ne sais quoi. And that's why people love to hear us speak, because it makes them feel good. They're entertained. And then once you do get to that world championship stage, it's a lot of energy. Well, of course, it's different now because it's virtual. But when you are in a room filled with 2,000 people who are dripping in anticipation, and you can just see these imaginary buckets like, fill me up with awesomeness, fill me up with awesomeness. They just have a sense of expectation. And so when you get on that stage and you're ready and you're hyped up, it kind of pumps you up a little bit more. So some of the Toastmaster speeches are a little more passionate because that's the culture here. And that's what people want to see. And that's what people love. And people enjoy, and that's why people keep coming back for it every single year. Nobody wants to see a boring Toastmaster speech. Nobody wants to see that person just stand there and deliver information. No, we want to be inspired. We want to be encouraged. Take us on that roller coaster ride. Tell us about the climaxes, and then take us to the valley, then take us back to the mountaintop and tell us what you want us to do. Give us that call to action. So I feel like it goes with the culture of Toastmasters. We want to be entertained. We want to be inspired. We want to be encouraged, and we want to feel your energy, whether versus a TED Talk where it's really valuable, innovative ideas.
Right. And you talked about coaching, and you just mentioned now about, of course, the contests the last couple of years have been virtual. Do you coach people differently for the online speech versus an in-person one?
I had to learn how to pivot there, because I don't like the virtual stage. I don't. And I feel like most speakers who really love speaking, we don't like this. I don't like having to sit here and be stuck in this box. I can't move. I feel like my gestures are kind of crunched in. I don't like it. So I had to learn to pivot there. And I actually had to do some research and some studying about how to give a presentation online. So if someone asks me specifically to coach them to speak online, I will have to make those adjustments, because there's not a lot of space to move. So we have to focus more on the hand gestures, the body language, the eye contact. Those are kind of pretty much the main focuses when I'm coaching online versus when I'm coaching someone who's going to give a presentation in person, and being aware of different props that they want to use, or being aware of which side the audience is going to be on and which side you want to give more attention to. So in a nutshell, yes, I had to learn how to pivot there, but I don't like speaking virtually. It's not the same feeling. It is just not.
But the one advantage is, as long as you're speaking from sitting down, you don't have to worry about what's on the bottom part of you. You only have to partly dress. But it's true, you don't have the opportunity to draw on the energy from your audience and respond to that. When you're just looking at a bunch of squares, it's not the same thing as having that response, and get a better sense in person of how things are going over, and Now, in a 5 to 7 minute speech, you don't have a lot of opportunity to change, but if you're doing a longer presentation, you can change things a bit based on that energy, and that's more difficult to obtain from an online presentation.
Definitely. So many distractions here, and if you look in here and then somebody's dog starts barking, and then you could get kicked out of the, it's another animal, and I'm not a fan, but in life we have to adjust, so we have to make those adjustments.
That's right. And some people are going to have to work with those adjustments for a long time, because businesses are changing the way they're doing things. So it's important to have the skills to be able to present well online. You mentioned early on about that winning the world championship did change your life. Could you talk to us a little bit about how it's done that?
Woo. I was a teacher in Aldine. I was a high school teacher. I was teaching child development and human growth and development. But one of my lifelong dreams is still to become an internationally known motivational speaker. I always had that. My mistake, I'm back. See, that's why I'm like, I've always had, that was always a dream that I had. However, I had just graduated college and moved to Houston. I had just got my teaching job in July, and the world championship happened in August. So I wasn't prepared. Nobody prepares to win. You don't really know you're going to win. There's no prep for that. And so when I did win, I didn't realize how big Toastmasters was in general, but I didn't realize how it was going to, like, the impact of the win. I didn't realize how significant it was and how it was really going to change the world. So the first thing that started happening that I had never experienced before was people inviting me overseas to come speak. And as someone who, I hadn't traveled much before that. I had been to Ghana. I studied abroad in Ghana for 2 weeks, and I had spent some time in Denmark, but that was about it. And so now I'm getting requests from Dubai and Sri Lanka and India and just all over the world. And that was the first thing. And because it was a lifelong dream of mine, I didn't want to, I never dreamt of being a teacher. It was just something that I did to make a living for me and my son when I moved to Houston. But that was my lifelong dream. And so I was at a crossroads where it's like, okay, do you want to miss out on all these opportunities that you'll probably never, ever, ever get again? Or do you want to continue on this path of teaching and ask yourself, what if you would have gone? So at first I was traveling a lot. I was having subs like 75% of the time. And my principal had to sit down with me and say, you might want to consider resigning, because it's not fair to our team. It's not fair to the kids that you are out of the classroom more than you're in the classroom. And at first I was like, nah, they'll be fine. It'll dwindle. But then it didn't stop. The requests continued to come in. There was media coming, which was good, because the school had some shaky publicity in the past, but it was some great press coming to the school and interviewing this 30-year-old teacher who had won the contest. And at that point, I started to get flooded with so many people asking me to come speak, and even outside of Toastmasters, and people offering me thousands and thousands of dollars to come speak, and a potential television show and this and that. And I'm like, you know what? I choose speaking. So I had to make a choice, teaching or speaking. I chose speaking. It took me all around the world to experience so many different cultures and to meet so many great people and to make these wonderful connections. And it made me a better human. It made me a better human because I realized that no matter where you go on the planet, if it's people with common interests, it doesn't matter what language they speak, it doesn't matter how they dress, it doesn't matter all of the external differences, we are all connected through this amazing organization. We all have the same goals. We all want to learn from each other. And even if I speak no Arabic or I speak none of the language, we still connect through tears and laughter and food. And I just realized how big the world is, but how small the world is, and how in America we have a lot of work to do, because we look so much, we put so much emphasis on the differences and it continues to divide us. And I'm like, we could have so much more fun if we just looked at each other as humans, and the good humans stick with the good humans and keep the bad humans as far away from us as possible. But in a nutshell, it helped me to see the world. It helped me to build my business, and it helped me to become a better human.
Great. And I often say that if, as a whole, people would look at the ways in which we are similar rather than focus on the ways in which we're different, then the world would be a much better place. And it's one of the things I like about Toastmasters is I do find that we look at the ways in which we're similar, and we can put those differences aside because they're not really important to helping each other move forward.
Absolutely.
So I am glad that you've experienced that with your travels as well. Okay, a final question for you, Ramona, is what advice would you give to those who want to win the world championship?
Let it go. Not let it go, because we all have goals and we all have dreams, but don't stress about it. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't feel like that's the only avenue for you to become a successful speaker. There are other organizations, there are other contests. Don't just feel like that's the end all be all. You can create your own World Championship of Public Speaking. You can have your own contest. It doesn't define you. It doesn't, being the world champion of public speaking is a great title to have, but I knew, and I say this often, I knew that I was a confident champion before I got on the stage. It didn't make or break me as a person. I know people who try to compete, and when they don't win, they just get so down in the dumps, and then they leave Toastmasters, and then they curse the organization, or they feel like they were cheated somehow. And it's a great goal to have, but you have to remember that it's like winning a lottery. 30,000 people and more nowadays are competing every single year. The chances of winning are not impossible, but is very slim. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. Continue to be a great speaker, continue to learn. You can do your own podcast. You can create your own platform. You can give yourself an amazing title. But if for the person who felt that and said, okay, whatever, but how do I win? If you really want to win, continue to study the previous world champions, continue to get feedback from your district leaders who are seasoned, who have seen thousands and thousands of speeches. Continue to reach out to the previous world champions if they have time in their schedules to help you, and just keep learning and keep growing. But remember to have fun with it. I always say, learn, grow, and have fun. It is a contest that somebody made up that people just fell in love with. It is not the end all be all of life. It doesn't define you as a speaker. You're not a horrible speaker if you don't win, or if you don't make it to the district level ever. You are an amazing human being, a part of a wonderful program, organization. And so if you never win, that's okay. And if you just want to win that bad, create your own, and you'll be the winner every time.
Well, thank you. I think that's very good advice for everyone. Ramona, I am glad to see that you are still standing, and I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors.
So much. I appreciate it.
Okay. Trying to stop the